It's Friday, April 25th, 2025. Fridays are Ask or Tell Me Anything, a Friday 5-pack, and I'm giving up on something. I'll tell you what that is coming up next on the AM Update. Congratulations, one and all, for making it through another week here on the AM Update. Another week full of twists and turns, as it seems to be since the start of the year. This is the AM Update. On Fridays, we have Ask or Tell Me Anything, but first, a Friday 5-pack of news stories. A couple of Trump executive orders caught my eye. This one, restoring equality of opportunity and meritocracy, basically doing away with this legal theory that basically says, hey, equal outcomes. That's basically communism. This legal theory of equal outcomes within the federal government for liability protection, that's going the way of the dodo bird if President Trump has anything to do with it or anything to say about it. That's the restoring equality of opportunity and meritocracy. I'd never really heard much about this legal theory, but a lot of people that I like and trust were very excited about this executive order. Also, President Trump yesterday signed an executive order to crack down on illegal straw donor and foreign contributions in U.S. elections. This is following reports and congressional investigations regarding potentially unlawful activities through ActBlue and other online fundraising platforms. ActBlue, of course, is the Democrats' online digital fundraising platform. You've heard stories over the years about ActBlue's, let's just call them shady dealings. They'll make donations in the names of people who have never actually signed up for ActBlue or donated to Democrats. They'll show up to those people's locations, to their addresses. Hey, did you donate $25 to ActBlue? And they'll say, no, I didn't. Well, this executive order that President Trump has signed might be targeting ActBlue, might be actually undercutting ActBlue and trying to get foreign shady money out of politics, at least Democrat politics anyway. Some more judicial tyranny. In the last 36 hours, various judges have told the Trump administration to bring back another illegal alien from El Salvador. Another federal judge told the Trump administration they need to restore funds to schools practicing diversity, equity, and inclusion practices. Another judge said they'd have to restore funds to sanctuary cities like San Francisco. And another judge said they have to drop a proof of citizenship mandate for voter registration. It's long past time the Trump administration has to just tell these judges, just no. Take a long walk off a short plank or a short walk off a long plank. I can't remember what it is. Just kick rocks. Get out of here with that. On the topic of the Russia-Ukraine war, here is Secretary of State Marco Rubio in the Oval Office yesterday.
Marco, what would you say?
Well, first of all, what was put before our partners was options to discuss about things that it would take to end a war. This war is endable. Both sides just have to agree to it. We've shown them a pathway forward. We've discussed those ideas. It was a good meeting yesterday. There'll be good meetings over the weekend. We've shown them the finish line. We need both of them to say yes. But what happened last night with those missile strikes should remind everybody of why this war needs to end. It's horrible those missiles landed. What's even worse is there are today people that were alive yesterday that are not alive today because this war continues. And the president wants to stop it. And everyone should be thanking the president for being a peacemaker and trying to save lives. That's what we're trying to do here. It's not our war. We didn't start it, as you know. But we're trying to end the dying. We're trying to end the destruction. And we've shown the path forward. We can see the finish line, but both of them have to get there. We're going to do everything we can to help them get there, but they have to ultimately say yes.
And we are using a lot of pressure on both. If you think we're just in there because we're nice people, then we are nice people, but we're using a lot of pressure.
So there's President Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio in recent days. I told you about this yesterday morning. President Trump really putting the kibosh and sending another warning to Vladimir Zelensky's mouth, as in shut it, when it comes to the issue of Crimea, which, as I understand, wasn't even on the negotiating table for a ceasefire or lasting peace between Ukraine and Russia. And then later on in the day yesterday, President Trump hit Russia. You heard Marco Rubio talk about those strikes on Kiev. Well, President Trump is not happy with Russia for striking Kiev overnight Wednesday into Thursday. So, again, you can hear some of the frustration in the voice there from Marco Rubio. There was optimism from J.D. Vance the other day during his international tour. This thing has just gone on way too long. And I'd like to see if Russia and Ukraine and Europe just can't be adults about this. That's really what we're talking about here. High stakes, high school, basically. If they can't be adults, I'm curious to see whether the United States will indeed just walk away from the entire negotiating process. A 19-year-old from Ocean Township, New Jersey, is accused of starting a massive wildfire that prompted thousands of evacuations, burned around 15,000 acres, and destroyed a commercial building. Joseph Kling was arrested and charged with aggravated arson and arson. It's according to the Ocean County Prosecutor's Office in a message on Thursday. The fire, named the Jones Road Wildfire, erupted Tuesday in Waretown and spread throughout the southern Ocean County area. Prosecutors accused Kling of setting wooden pallets on fire and then leaving the area without ensuring that the fire was fully extinguished. As of Thursday morning, the fire was 50% contained. Soundbite of the week, we go to the the Red Star state of Minnesota. Here's Governor Tim Walz, at the State of the State.
Now, in this land of the free and home of the brave, we have university students being swept up, shoved into unmarked vans, and fathers being tossed into Salvadorian gulags without a hint of due process. So I want to be real clear about this. If you say you love freedom, but you don't believe freedom is for everybody, then the thing you love isn't freedom, it's privilege.
Yeah, see, here's the thing, though. Of course, the characterization of the El Salvador gulags and Maryland father there, that's, of course, head-scratching, but it's not surprising. Here's the thing. I do love freedom, which is why I don't think it's for everyone. I don't think rapists should be free. I don't think murderers should be free. In fact, I think rapists and murderers, especially if they don't deserve the needle or the gun or the chair, they deserve the gulags. Freedom is not free. That's why it's not for everyone. Again, the utopian thinking of utterly, utterly mushy brains. Ask or tell me anything. We'll start with Beamhound. What happened to the story in Colorado about the two Mexicans with 180,000 rounds of .308 ammunition? Well, here's this story from CBS. Two residents of Mexico were recently arrested in Colorado while allegedly transporting 180,000 rounds of large caliber ammunition. They were pulled over after driving toward deputies and failing to dim their van's headlights. Two Fremont County detectives were driving on State Highway 50 in Canyon County March 26th. According to a federal arrest affidavit, the van was coming on in the opposite direction and left its headlights on the highest setting as it passed the deputy's vehicle. It's against, of course, Colorado state law and many other laws for a driver to fail to dim his or her vehicle's headlights when there is oncoming traffic within 500 feet. The detectives followed the white GMC passenger van to a gas station and pulled behind it. Both men inside the van, Cesar Ramon Martinez Solis, 41 years old, and Humberto Ivan Amador Gavira, 24-year-old, both of Mexico, presented United States visas as their forms of identification. Detectives asked to search the van. Martinez Solis, the driver, gave permission. Inside the cargo compartment, the detectives found approximately 150 boxes of .308 caliber ammunition and approximately 30 boxes of .762 ammunition. Each box was labeled as containing 1,000 rounds. Neither man's documents did not allow them to be in possession of rounds of ammunition or weapons. Fremont County Sheriff's Office then detained both men and contacted U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement personnel. Two men were subsequently interviewed by ICE agents and others from the Denver offices of the U.S. Homeland Security and U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Martinez Solis told them he and his brother-in-law, Amador Gavira, entered the U.S. the day before. They traveled to Denver, bought the van there, then drove to Salt Lake City and purchased the ammunition from a store. Martinez Solis told investigators the ammunition was, to the best of his knowledge, destined for Pueblo. Just 180,000 rounds. Just casually entering the country from Mexico, you know. Lots of Mexicans just have just piles of disposable cash where they can travel to the United States, buy a van, then travel to another state, buy 180,000 rounds of ammunition, and then drive back to Puebla. Lots of Mexicans just have that kind of disposable income, don't you know? Let's move on with Ask or Tell Me Anything. Let's go to Doctor. What do you think about recycling? For example, essential to save the planet, a religion, or a straightforward decision depending on economics, assuming free markets, a scam to make consumers responsible for plastics instead of manufacturers, a combination, it depends, or other. I'd say it depends. When it comes to metal recycling, I'm totally in favor of that. Totally in favor of that. Recycling aluminum, I think that's a good idea. Recycling various types of steel, that's kind of a cost-intensive process to make. If it's certain types of steel, I'm totally for that, as long as it can be done as much domestically as possible. I will tell you, though, what the actual scam here is. And this is what most of recycling is, because what is most of the things we recycle, I'd wager? Plastic recycling. A total scam. And honestly, I think the advent, and I know it's cheap, but the advent of plastic packaging in general has been a net negative. Here is the process, off the top of my head, if I remember correctly. Here is the process for quote-unquote plastic recycling, okay? So you, the consumer, have a bag full of pop bottles. You take that to your local recycling facility. You do not dump that in the recycling bin. A recycler, who knows if it's a state contract, maybe a local contract, will then send that plastic to a central sorting location. All of that plastic then, do you know where it heads? Do you know where it heads? It heads to China, where there are manufacturers in China who will melt that plastic down. I think it's chopped up first and then melted down for just pennies on the dollar. And from what I've learned, these Chinese manufacturers actually don't make very much money, if any money at all. It was all part of, I think, an old trade agreement that they just literally just take our trash. They are the West's trash man. And then it's melted or melted and made into other materials. So it's not actually, and along the way, by the way, there's a lot of waste. There's studies that's been done, the melting and the recycling process to actually get it back to China, where most of our plastic is recycled, last I checked. There's actually more carbon emissions doing it that way than if we just threw it in a hole in the ground and let it decompose for the next 2,000 years. So that's a total scam. Now, other stuff like cardboard, I don't really know. But I think in terms of metals, yes, recycle metals, that's good. Recycling plastics, it's a total scam. When we come back, I'm quitting something. I'm giving up. I'll tell you what that is coming up next. I am giving up. I'm giving up. But first, more Ask or Tell Me Anything. Uncontexted Dace 2. Did you see the lawsuit waiting to happen at the Ray Gun store? So for those of you not aware, Ray Gun, it's a national company, but it's more of an Iowa thing. Some liberals really good at making funny t-shirts. And you probably heard this. You've probably seen jokes, maybe memes across the internet this week. J.D. Vance visited the Pope on Easter Sunday, and the Pope is dead the next day. And so Ray Gun is now selling a shirt that just says J.D. Vance killed the Pope. So I doubt J.D. Vance would have much success filing a lawsuit against Ray Gun, but any other person, yeah. Aaron McIntire killed fill in the blank with absolutely no evidence, even if it is a joke. Yeah, that's grounds for libel, I think. I mean, this joke is funny. I saw some people taking some of the worst people on the internet, on X, just blow jokes way out of proportion and take them way too seriously. We're not allowed to joke about anything at all. I saw somebody, I can't remember who it was, somebody who should know better, quote tweeted one of these J.D. Vance, who should he kill next? Or who should he visit? Quote unquote visit. Who should J.D. Vance visit next? And it was an AI generated photograph of J.D. Vance and Anthony Fauci. Said, J.D. Vance should pay a visit to Anthony Fauci next. And somebody quote tweeted or quote posted, whatever that's called now, and said, no, the next person J.D. Vance should visit is Trump and RFK Jr. And this is somebody, if I remember correctly, who purports to be conservative. I just, and very disillusioned with politics and the White House. I don't understand that. Your brain is broken. Jim Stalker says, some state legislators, like Representative Josh Schriver of Michigan, have introduced bills that would basically nullify Obergefell and ban gay marriage in those states. If there's no demand for that, Should they be spending their political capital on it or focus on what's popular? Generally speaking, Jim, I'm in favor, I believe in the House of Representatives in Michigan. I'm pretty sure that's not controlled by Republicans at the moment. And you've got a Democrat governor there. So there's no harm, because there's no real chance of a bill like this being passed. There's no harm in using that as an opportunity to stand up for traditional marriage. Now, another person might call that grandstanding, and yes, that's true. But if you had a slim majority in the Michigan legislature, and you had maybe a wobbly Republican governor, maybe a rhino, would it be better to focus on other things in that circumstance? I think maybe there's an argument, yes. Hey, could you cut taxes? Could you just get the bare minimum? Because in the current circumstance, you're never going to get a repeal of homo marriage, which there's no such thing as homosexual marriage, but you get what I'm saying. There's no real chance of that happening, so you might as well use your platform to inform the public on God's design for marriage and family. But in the environment where there is a chance that you could make some headways, I should say, against the deep Michigan state, if you will, then I think the calculus changes. But then it changes again if you had a supermajority and a great governor. Then you have to shoot for the moon. So that would be my answer. Cupcake says, there is one non-denominational church I want to visit, but I heard that aside from paying for his pastoral degree, I think that's fine, the church also paid for a Mercedes for the pastor. I think this is a waste of church funds. Would you still visit? Possibly. I think I would still visit, although, my spidey senses, as it seems like yours are, Cupcake, my spidey senses would still be tingling. Here's what I try to discern. Pastors, by and large, unless you get into the super big megachurch, pastors by and large are just, on average, not paid very well. They're lucky to have a parsonage at the church, and even in those cases, the parsonage isn't in that good a shape. So there's that. So I would try to discern, hey, was this, are they checking all of the other boxes that a church should be checking? Got a men's ministry. We're active. The pastor is doing a great job of challenging and teaching and exegetically preaching the word of God every single Sunday. And there are real results, and people are growing, and they love their pastor because they recognize what God through the Holy Spirit is doing through that pastor. And they want the world to know how much they love their pastor. So they got him a Mercedes after all of these other boxes have been checked. You've got a food bank or something along those lines, some sort of community outreach that the church corporately provides support for. You've got support for missionaries, whether it's domestically or foreign, all of these other boxes. And you just really love and appreciate your pastor. And that's why they got him the nice car, to show the world how much they love him. I think that's okay, actually. I don't think there's any clause that says, hey, pastors can't drive Mercedes or BMWs. Now, is that a poor look if pastor is using his salary on purchasing things like that when there are real unaddressed needs and obvious needs in that church? Absolutely, I think it is. But maybe it's just a case of this church body loves what this pastor is doing and all the sacrifices maybe that the pastor has put into this church. Maybe it's a case of that. I would guess it's probably not, but I wouldn't just dismiss a church because they got their pastor a new car. Now, if you find out that this was some sort of signing bonus, like he's some sort of, professional athlete, yeah, that would be, let's just say, an interesting reason. That'll do it for Ask or Tell Me Anything. I give up. I just give up. I've tried so hard for so long now. And there just comes a point where you just have to be honest with yourself that it's just not working out this way. Not the way that you wanted it, not the way that maybe others would want it to be. But I've challenged myself this year to analyze the world as it is, not as you'd like it to be. And one of those things happened to me recently on the very personal level. And I've just had to be honest with myself. This is the way the world is, not the way the world ought to be. And I'd been acting in a way and performing in a way as if the world is not the way that it is. I have tried for years now to be courteous and kind, go out of my way at Costco to make sure I'm not getting in other people's way. I'm not cutting people off. I'm not just standing ad nauseum, ad infinitum, ad end caps while people are trying to get around me. I am trying to love my neighbor as I love myself. I'm trying to. But when it comes to shopping at Costco, I've just decided that the world is the way that I would not like it to be. It is not any of that. So I'm giving up on being courteous and polite at Costco. From now on, when I visit that store, it's just going to be me in there. I'm not in there with all of those other people who are just chilling out at choke points, not letting anybody through. They're in there with me. I'm going where I will go. And you can deal with that. I'm showing no mercy to the patrons of Costco because none will be shown to me. I'm giving up on propriety. I'm giving up on courteousness. Giving up on being polite. Costco is there for me, not me for Costco. That'll do it for a Friday. Hey, quick housekeeping note. Next week, we will be back with regular order on Monday. I'm not going to be in here on Tuesday or Wednesday, possibly and probably even Thursday, and maybe not even on Saturday for No Suck Saturday. So it looks like it's just going to be Monday and Friday next week. I wish I could tell you why. I cannot. But it's just going to be kind of a hanky-janky schedule next week. Wanted to get that in there before we left this week. And I'll provide another reminder on Monday. So don't think that your podcast platform is malfunctioning or anything. Nope. I have to be off. I can't really avoid it Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Have a wonderful weekend. Bella and I will be back tomorrow with No Suck Saturday. Until Monday, for the rest of you, have a wonderful weekend.